Recently I have been noticing a trend of people talking about the film Falling Down, starring Michael Douglas, like City Crusher of the Pro-Male Collective in response to someone. It's an interesting film and very relevant with time, and I want to add my 2 cents and frame it in the context of the so-called manosphere and incels especially, while also giving my own thoughts on the film's ending. D-FENS, played by Douglas, is a traditionalist of the failed variety. He is someone who fully bought into the whole rat race, grinding the soulless job, using acquired resources to bribe the woman into a relationship before getting the boot and being alienated from his kid. He is essentially an incel, a man who has now lost his job, his career prospects are in the dump, and as someone no longer economically viable, he is unable to bribe the woman and has lost his connection to the world. Now, here are a couple of important points I want to add. This film is way back from the 90s. D-FENS is not a very young guy in this movie. He is a boomer. This is important because it predates all these threat narratives about incel/manosphere, people being misogynistic terrorists in the making. Men buying into the materialistic lifestyle, obsession with women, and the disconnect from society reinforcing this view is nothing new. Incels like Douglas' character feel alienated and disconnected from society and the people in it. To anyone who has ever listened to incels, it should be obvious that their complaints are largely centered around the lack of deeper connections with people and not merely getting laid. This is why he chooses to commit suicide, by cop in the end. Trapped in the materialistic worldview, a man who failed to get validation from the goddess, knowing he's going to jail, going to be further alienated from his kid, and basically never be economically viable again. He fails to find any meaning or purpose to his existence in this world, a lonely male existence which is the default for men anyway. Plus, men, despite all their tough guy strongman posturing, have difficulty accepting the simple fact: you are born alone, you die alone. Men are not these strong individualists. Many are unable to use solitude as something spiritual, something to reflect on at a deeper level and forge a new path. And as I said, incels are not the only group of men who center their lives around women and materialistic notions of success. In the manosphere, which is really just a term for groups of men congregating on the internet, often obsessed with women, relationships, and fixed into a materialistic, biodeterministic worldview, and often not economically viable themselves, unless they are grifting other men with bullshit advice on self-improvement and how to be uber alpha dude bro. There's a group called MGTOW that on the surface rejects traditionalism. On one level, it's easy to recognize this as a false scope when you see the amount of men waffling about collapse, used up sluts, the wall.
Tear down this wall.
Cat ladies, etc. On another level, there is the so-called highbrow MGTOW, like Barbarossa, who was deemed highly intellectual and inspiring, but reality shows a much more complex picture. You see, Barbar seemed like a tradcon evolving out of traditionalism, similar to Razorblade Candy, another YouTuber he inspired. He was young, an undergraduate of Catholic background, talking against traditionalism and adopting a more biodeterministic worldview. Once he graduated, he got a high-paying job and a girlfriend and was done hanging out with these losers.
Meep meep. Meep meep.
In reality, he is a good example of a failed traditionalist who became quote-unquote successful, and the prime example that MGTOW is a community of men bonding over their failed traditional conservatism. They were supposed to hightail it once they so-called make it. As the saying goes, fake it till you make it. Devolve or disappear. Some even explicitly say you can't be MGTOW if you never had relationships or you are a virgin. After all, you were supposed to try traditionalism and relationships and only come to bitch about them after the failure. As for Barbarossa, his rejection of the traditionalist religious cult of fertility worship in favor of another materialist ideology clearly didn't change his life priorities. Another thing worth discussing in this movie is the much older male character played by Robert Duvall, a detective about to retire who himself doesn't have much going for him, stuck with a former beauty queen turned abusive schizo overweight wife at home, and a job where he's constantly disrespected by his colleagues and friend-zoned hard by his much younger attractive female partner. If D-FENS is an incel, the detective is the other side of the coin. He is the realistic portrayal of what incels call a Chad. A man with a long career and still married to his so-called Stacy, only to realize how disposable he really is. Discarded and disrespected when no longer useful. This realistic portrayal of so-called Chads exists in other popular media like ex-jock Al Bundy in Married with Children and Springsteen's character in the song Glory Days. The paradox of the Chad archetype is that incels see them as successful and accepted by women and society, while in reality these men often accumulate status only when young, able to ride the wave and follow trends, before brutally crashing when the gig is up and they can no longer put on the societal masks expected of them. They end up as just another loser in the rat race with no credentials to show except reminiscing about the good old glory days. When I was in school, I saw all kinds of kids obsessed with social trends. Middle-class kids dreaming of becoming bourgeoisie, wearing Nike shoes, cool phones, some even flashing watches, riding bikes, talking about new movies and chicks they met on Facebook. What incels see as so-called Chads and so-called Stacys are really just shallow trends living on borrowed time. Men from an early age are conditioned to learn hierarchy and pecking order, prepared to become superficial, disposable cogs in the machine. Most of education is not only obsolete, but teaches kids to be obedient, mindless little lemmings, graded on their ability to parrot. And if you were ever an introverted boy, bullied or disconnected from your peers, you quickly learn that teachers and professors will see you as the fucking problem, in accordance with that old Japanese adage, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. In other words, they are the pecking order, and they reinforce hierarchy among boys. Contrary to all the talk about how women are shallow and materialistic, men are hardly any better. Boys will ditch their low-status lonely buddies for the popular groups if the opportunity arises, until they find a girlfriend to spend time with. Later, they will ditch their single buddies after marriage. If they run into them, chances are they'll ask them about getting married. So, in conclusion, Falling Down is a film pointing to a trend that is truly intergenerational, but one that has been further exacerbated by societal decay centered around the materialistic quasi-culture and social networks that further incentivize male posturing and female narcissism. Men need to look inward, not outwards, and find their own higher purpose in life, one that goes beyond living as a corporate drone, bringing bacon to a woman who will leave them one day unless the stress of such a life sends them to an early grave. Only a man who rejects false consciousness and truly reflects honestly is a man seeking an authentic, better life. As a bonus clip, here is an excerpt from the 1981 Freeman Report of Frank Zappa talking about education. Enjoy.
Schools train people to be ignorant with style. They give you the equipment that you need to be a functional ignoramus. American schools do not equip you to deal with things like logic. They don't give you the criteria by which to judge between good and bad in any medium or format. And they prepare you to be a usable victim for a military-industrial complex that needs manpower. As long as you're just smart enough to do a job and just dumb enough to swallow what they feed you, you're going to be all right. But if you go beyond that, you're going to have these grave doubts that give you stomach problems, headaches, make you want to go out and do something else. So I believe that schools mechanically and very specifically try and breed out any hint of creative thought in the kids that are coming up.
What's the alternative for the parent who would agree with you?
Well, remember that the school isn't the only place that a child gets educated. If you realize that the schools are doing damage, and I believe this, I believe that schools do a lot of damage to kids, then you should do what you can at home to help give them something to counteract what's happening to them at school.
You mean encourage creativity?
Encourage them to read things other than what the school gives them. Encourage them to watch things on television other than cartoons, because I don't believe that television is all bad, and some things that are on are very useful. And give them some support. Let them feel that you as a parent want them to be smart, not just to be successful, not just to be a nice little person, that you want them to develop their thinking apparatus.